I know you have some ideas for projects, and I want to throw some ideas for projects out there because it's fine for us to say, hey, do some making, but we don't want to leave people hanging with
right. Where do you start if you've never done this before?
So one website I've found useful is Instructables, and again we'll link that up. But that has a pretty cool, there's lists of different projects you can do, and you can kind of search things out there. I also have, especially it got me thinking the other day, we're doing this a few days after the Notre Dame Cathedral burnt down, right?
Yes.
And so I thought about, have them make a landmark, research from a country or a landmark in a different country, and have them either make it in the physical, like use cardboard, duct tape, masking tape, paper towel rolls, make that landmark, or have them build it in Tinkercad. Or use WeVideo and have them make a tour of that landmark, or tell about that landmark, or even create a tour using Google Slides, like I said, using all those linking tools like the Control K to link with websites or videos.
Well, it's great because they're learning content, they're learning about something specific, and then they're learning skills that they can transfer over into their daily lives, and eventually who knows what they're gonna do when they grow up. So I think that's great. That they're kind of branding themselves early on as not necessarily an entrepreneur, but someone who's comfortable, solving problems or making something or giving a task and completing that task in a creative way. I think that's what people that are going to look for when you're trying to get into college, when you're trying to get into jobs, not how did you do on a multiple choice test.
Right.
Because I know every job interview I've ever been on, no one ever said, how'd you do on that science test?
Exactly. But yeah, it's can you solve a problem? Can you be creative? I give you a problem that nobody solved before, and you come up with some different solution for it.
Whether or not the solutions work, who knows? But at least there's something, being done to try and solve a problem.
Absolutely. What are some of the, project ideas that you've had?
Man, we, in third grade, it's really fun because they're creative. They want to be hands-on, and we've done, tons of things. The first we really started with was a paper airplane experiment. And we started with, most of the kids know how to make a paper airplane. Right. So everyone makes a paper airplane and they throw their plane.
And now you're getting to throw a paper airplane in school and not getting in trouble.
Oh, it's hilarious because their jaws drop, and because I'm the first one to do it, I'm like, guys, check this out. They're all over the place. But we start to put in some norms. Like we just can't have paper airplanes flying all over the place.
Right.
There's a designated area. There's a designated time when you reach a certain point. You're just
that's when you're testing.
Yeah, because you are working. It's fun.
And you're prototyping, you're testing, you're redesigning,
That's the thing. Like
different iterations.
We throw a plane and then, okay, that's great. How far did it go? Ooh, that's awesome. Now the question is, what can you do to make that plane fly further?
Right.
So, they have to start to do a little research. And some of them, they're like, what's aerodynamics? And they're starting to get into some heavy things.
And you're picking up vocabulary.
And that's it. And most of the time, if you gave I believe a third grader a book, most of them aren't going to try and read aerodynamic. They're not going to want to read aerodynamic, but now it's like they have that purpose to. They want to figure out what they can do to make their airplane fly further. And it's a test against themselves. It's not a who can make it in the class.
Right.
What can you do to make
better yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
With doing a little research, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
And I know you've also had them try to carry a load, right?
Well, this year, I forget where I found it, but it wasn't necessarily how far it could go, but how much of a load it could carry.
And that's pretty awesome.
And moving forward next year, when we do it, sometimes these planes were all over the place. Like if you were on a plane that we saw,
you wanted to go in a straight line, right?
and some of these planes, they were going far and they were carrying heavy loads, but I would not want to be on those planes. So we're going to kind of try and tweak that a little bit. So paper airplanes for distance, carrying loads. There's straw rockets out there.
Yeah.
So just making a rocket, and not that I don't want to say that's a recipe, but that's not necessarily something they could be too creative about, because they're giving them a straw. It's a specific piece of paper,
right?
But it's still something that they can do and then start to play around with to tweak. How can I make it fly further?
And again, I mean, any kind of job out there, if you're building, there are constraints, right? So
most definitely.
Maybe it is, these are the constraints. You only have these materials that are going to work. And again, with that, could we tweak it to how much of a load can that straw rocket carry?
Oh, most definitely.
You know what I mean?
Right. You want to add those things in there, so there is a time constraint. There
Right.
might be a budget constraint. One of the fun things was Play-Doh and working with Play-Doh. Now, another PSA. I learned this year,
Right.
and I have a student who is gluten-free
Right.
or needs to be gluten-free.
Yep.
And I start passing out Play-Doh, and he goes, I can't use that. I have celiac disease.
Right.
And I said, well, just don't eat it.
Right.
You know,
Like, I can't even touch it, man.
well, and that's what he said. If I touch that, things are going to be a problem.
Right.
So, know your students and know Play-Doh can't be used with
Right.
someone who does have celiac disease.
And I believe if you go out online, like there are like recipes to make your own Play-Doh that is.
Well, I haven't found a good
gluten-free.
recipe yet.
Okay.
The recipes that I have found and tried to put together, it's not the best.
Right. It's not Play-Doh.
But they do sell Play-Doh.
That's
Not necessarily.
gluten-free.
I don't know if it's a Play-Doh brand, but they do sell some type of modeling clay that is gluten free.
Okay. So yeah, that is just something people need to know.
No, most definitely, because that could be a lawsuit,
Right.
or not even a lawsuit,
It's just a problem.
right?
Yeah.
That could hurt a little kid, and I don't think anyone wants to do that.
Yeah.
But they would take the Play-Doh, they would make something that represents themselves,
Okay.
in maybe about 10 or 15 minutes. And then they would have to stand up and explain to the class what they make and how it represents them.
That's awesome. Right. So you're hitting that public speaking.
Yep. You want to be
And-
comfortable standing in front of people, whether or
Right.
not they're your friends or whatever, and just being able to talk about something.
Right. And, again, they're a little bit of a less of a fear because you're the expert on yourself.
You're
right?
talking
Nobody
about
knows
something you want.
Right. Exactly.
And just to kind of speed things on, I mean, I could talk about this all day, Ron.
Right.
A potato activity where
That was awesome.
you read about a biography. You read a biography, and then you take something you've learned from the biography and make that person into a Mr. Potato Head.
And you used the real potatoes.
We
for this.
used
You didn't
potatoes.
know plastic Mr. Potato.
No. We used real potatoes, and after a while, they did start to smell. So you
Right.
might not want to keep them for over a week.
Right.
But it was great because the kids brought in things, and
Yep.
they're reading about their
Oh,
person.
they were awesome.
They walk around the school. They walk around their world and say, "Hey, I can grab that, and that would make this potato,
Right.
that much better."
That's cool.
So that was really cool. PBS has a page that has a whole bunch of building for students on there.
Okay. Yep.
Which is where I got the plans for the paper houses with newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
Building the paper houses,
Yep.
building a paper bridge out of newspapers, the empathy cards that we're going to be
Yep, they're
putting
coming
out there.
Soon. Yep.
So, with May the 4th coming up, and May
Right.
the 4th be with you.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys know it, but Han Solo got the Millennium Falcon repossessed. That's one of the cards. So the
Right.
students would have to make a new spaceship for Han Solo. So they
Right,
know
right.
a little bit about Han Solo.
Right.
And it just so happened that Chewbacca's satchel that he wears, well, that was on the Millennium Falcon. So now,
no.
oh yes, so now Chewie needs something else to carry everything around
All
him.
right.
And we all know Chewie's, 7 feet tall and,
Right.
and a Wookiee from, I forget what the Wookiee planet's called. But so, these kids know a little bit about these characters, and then they make things for those characters.
That's awesome.
Last year we did, in science, we were working with mass and acceleration, and there was a roller coaster project. Well, a girl I work with, her daughter is wheelchair bound.
Right.
And she started talking about, her daughter can't go on roller coasters. So then we kind of had the idea to make roller coaster carts that can hold a wheelchair.
Oh, all right.
And
all right.
Ron, I can't tell you, we were getting calls from parents, from kids that are walking by. We got hooked up with another little girl in another school.
I remember.
It brought tears to her
Yeah.
mom's eyes, and
Yeah.
this kind of stuff can really hit home in a lot of places that you don't even realize.
Right. That's awesome.
And I know you were saying before, I think you were saying about designing or making a monster, right?
Right.
Or
Yep,
being
that's one of the things
an
I have,
animal.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So I
Yeah.
won't talk about
Oh, no,
that.
that's fine.
But maybe during winter, who doesn't love to sled? So then design a ramp that you can sled off of.
Right.
And hey, if your district's lucky enough where you're able to go out in the snow, then build that ramp.
Right.
And hopefully no one gets hurt. So yeah, what are some of the things because I know your room is awesome, and what you have in your room, like the amount of materials you have,
Right.
is.
And I mean, I'm probably the oddball out. I have access to 3D printers and Tinkercad, but I try to, kind of balance that out with what I do in here. Not everything is going to be 3D printing. And so, some of the things that, I've done, not even as a technology teacher, but when I taught 5th grade was, have students make a creature. They design the creature, right? They're the person who discovered this creature. They can write a little biography about this creature, or like a scientific, not a paper, but a scientific write-up about
a report.
What it eats, what it looks like, its size, its name, where it lives. If you're talking about habitats, there's a great tie into science. And then you're bringing this creature back to show off to the world. You got to design some enclosure for this creature, and then so you can do that physical making, build the enclosure or build the creature. Some pipe cleaners, some paper towel rolls, cardboard. You can design a pretty good creature with that. And then present it to the class. Again, stand up, talk to everybody. Again, no worries about public speaking. It's their creature. They're the expert on it.
And I think public speaking should be brought in to every part of making.
As much as we can.
Most definitely. To get them comfortable standing in front of people and talking. And
put it out there.
Yep.
I made this. Put it out there for people to look at it. I know kids worry about being judged sometimes, but honestly, I haven't found that much of an issue with, students judging each other on what they make. I found kids more very enthusiastic about, oh my gosh, I can't believe you made that, or that's amazing.
Right. That's where you, in the beginning of the year, you set the climate up for your classroom to say, tell us, and I always ask the kids, tell them something you liked and tell them something where you think it could be improved upon.
Right.
So, you have to be able to take that constructive criticism. Otherwise you're walking around the whole time thinking either I'm not good enough or no one likes me.
Or you're that person on American Idol who can't sing, but everybody in their life has told them that they can sing, right?
Not everyone deserves a trophy.
Absolutely. And something like that, making the creature, it hits a lot of different things: writing, collaboration, creativity, engineering, building, public speaking. There's so much out there. You could even then go to WeVideo and design or create a commercial about your character. Or
you talk about the writing and reluctant writers. Allow them to make first. I think it was Laura Fleming who has the book out there, Make Writing. And you can design maybe a setting with Legos.
Right.
Now write me a story about that Legos.
Or
you can design
your potato head, right?
Or the potato head, or build a character, build a monster, and then write a personal narrative about that monster.
Right. Or about how you discovered that monster. The
monster's point of view, the townspeople's point of view.
Yeah.
There's so much. So for reluctant writers, making is a path people can go down.
Yeah. One other project would be design a form of transportation, right? You have people out there who, years ago, somebody saying, hey, I'm going to build a rocket that's going to help us colonize Mars, like Elon Musk did with SpaceX. And people thought he's nuts.
Right.
Well, but SpaceX is putting rockets up and they're actually landing back. You know what I mean?
There was something on Twitter the other day. Was it John Meehan maybe? No, it was the Daily STEM. Daily STEM had said, if you are not showing this to your students, you should be. And I couldn't believe that rocket landed
right back where it
was like it was always meant to be.
Yep. And there have been plenty that haven't landed very well.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
But get them to design,
which you should celebrate. You should celebrate those failures, because if it wasn't for the failures, then the successes would never come.
Yep.
Or even Elon Musk. What about flying cars?
Right.
When the students are like, "Oh, I'm going to build a flying car," and my response was, "Well, how's that going to make things better?"
Right.
You can't just play around with things, but you should just play around with things. That's when I was saying that, I'm like slapping myself in the face. We want them playing around.
We want
those
creative.
We want those dreamers dreaming big.
Exactly.